Welcome to Her Career Studio. I'm your host and career coach, Lisa Virtue. Here we live by the mantra, thrive at work so you can thrive in life, because we know you are more than your day job. Each episode includes actionable tips and often mentor stories to not only boost your professional success, but also enhance your personal well-being. Join me as we explore ways to ensure your career uplifts your life as you strive to achieve work-life harmony. Head to hercareerstudio.com for free resources and coaching services to help support you during career transitions and challenges, such as when you are looking to find and land that next ideal job or promotion, or are leading a new team. We're here to support you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and please hit the thumbs up or leave a 5-star review if you are finding the content useful. This helps us keep going in our mission to help women in their careers. Thank you so much for your support. As women, we tend to have more than one journey that affects our personal life that isn't linear. And what do you do when you think you figured out your best career, dream job, you go down that path, and then life throws curveballs or just changes at you, and you realize that is no longer the season for that career? In this episode, I talked to Cassie Briggs, a fellow career coach who focuses on helping students and people in the STEM fields because she comes from a scientific and professorship background in the university system. She thought she had found her dream job and had worked her way up to the position that she thought would be what she did with the rest of her career. But then life happened and she had children and things changed, including moving geographically somewhere where she couldn't continue that work because she put her family first. This is such a common story, and I'm sure many of you have heard it, have experienced it, know someone who's going through it, or expecting that this might happen to you as well. Because again, as women, we have this unique situation where we tend to have different seasons in our career. So tune into this episode when Cassie and I talk about how she was a conservation biologist turned career coach, and we discuss her remarkable journey through the twists and turns of academia, motherhood, and entrepreneurship. She talks about navigating financial hurdles that we experience when we pursue things like grad school and the invaluable support she received from her mentors in a male-dominated industry, and why mentors play such a crucial role in our careers and including our transitions. From finding the right job fit and balancing a demanding career with motherhood to her eventual transition into coaching, Cassie offers insights and actionable advice for career-minded individuals. So enjoy this conversation when we talk about the power of mentorship, the importance of aligning your career with your values, and practical tips on maintaining resilience through life's inevitable changes. Enjoy. Hi, Cassie. It's so nice to have you today. As a fellow career coach, I'm just thrilled to chat with you and love your niche that you're going to talk about here in a second. So let's just get right into it. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about your background and how you came to be in the career you're in now?
Well, Lisa, first, thank you so much for having me on. It's such a pleasure. I love what you're doing with this podcast. So I was that weirdo in 9th grade who knew what she wanted to be for the rest of her life. And so I remember my mom talking to me and she's like, Cassie, are you sure? You haven't even explored options. I was like, no, I'm going to be a biology professor and that's what I'm going to do. And interestingly enough, just to fast forward through my journey, every experience I had just affirmed I was on the right path and it was going to be a good fit for me. And so I went through the stages that every professor goes through. So got an undergrad degree, went straight into a master's program, then a PhD program. And then I actually graduated a year early to accept my dream job at a university. And so I was in my dream job pretty quickly, very blessed in that instance. And then from there, my world got turned upside down. As many women listening to this podcast may relate, when my husband and I decided to start our family, everything changed. And that hour-and-a-half commute was no longer feasible. What are you going to tell the daycare? I'll be there in 2 hours if your kid's sick. And so we elected to move closer to my husband's job. And I had a major shift after that and had to leave what I knew I wanted to be since 9th grade.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. As a fellow mom, I can relate to so many pieces of your story. One, when your daughter says, this is what I want to do, and they can have this conviction about them. Of course, as a parent, you want to make sure that's true, but then you're kind of relieved, right? Like, okay, we know what Cassie's doing. We can support this. We can help it. So that is so fascinating. And then yes, children change a lot in our life. And I personally have that experience as well for me personally, having a daughter shifted my whole outlook on, oh my gosh, what's the future going to look like for her and her career journey? And what can I do to help with this and help women? And what have I been through that I can, give some mentorship back and help with those resources. So yeah.
Yeah. Can I share an honest realization? And sons, I love you. So if you ever listen to this podcast, I love you. But I remember my first reaction when I found out I was having not just one boy and then 2 years later, another boy. I remember thinking, oh, great. I'm bringing 2 more privileged white boys into this world. And while as a mom, I was like, oh gosh, why did I just think that?
Sure.
It also put me on such a charge to make sure I'm raising 2 boys that really champion women, champion people from marginalized groups. I was very intentional in picking out childcare options for them. I ended up, the first daycare was over 30 minutes away just so they could be closer to Detroit, where there's more diversity. And then we found another daycare option close to home, and he goes to this lovely Filipino woman. And so he's getting a lot of cultural exposure, which is all I can ask from a 4 and a 2-year-old at this point. They don't truly comprehend yet, but that exposure is so important. So just wanted to share that brief story.
Oh, thank you for sharing. And I was going to say, yes, as long as we all have the same mindset of how can we make that generation stronger than ever? What can we impart as far as wisdom that we have right now, which we know will change and ebb and flow? It's really all we can do, isn't it, as parents? Yeah. We had a similar situation too, where my daughter was in preschool and we moved into Northeast Portland, and we're in Oregon. And she became a minority as a white woman, white girl. And that was such a great experience for her to just have so much cultural interaction and friends and teachers that had so much diversity. Now, since we've actually moved away from there because the situation in our world, and we're always thinking, oh man, we want her to continue to have more diverse experiences just for that richness, that cultural piece. And I love the fact that she'll grab any Barbie, it doesn't matter the skin color, and she loves it like all the others. We have a very eclectic group of dolls in our house, which I don't know if she didn't have that experience early on for a few years, if it'd be the same.
Yeah.
Such an impactful thing.
And I did expose my boys to dolls, but they gravitated towards the monster trucks and Hot Wheels.
Right.
So
they definitely choose for themselves. Yes. We were the parents who are like, we're not going to call our daughter Princess. Well, we went to Disney World and guess what they all called her? And she embraced that. All she wanted to do was meet princesses. I'm like, well, at least she chose it.
Absolutely.
Exposed her to a lot of other things. Yeah. I love that. Well, let's dig into what you do now and how you realized this was your calling.
So as Lisa already mentioned, right, I am a career coach now. What was interesting is that I didn't even know that that was a career option that existed even when I started. So I had launched this college to career mentorship program while I was a professor and loved it. I found like students were really getting so much value out of it. And I loved when office hours were less about photosynthesis. I teach biology, right? So less about photosynthesis and more about where does this show up in the real world? What careers use it? And then I realized, if everybody listening could see where I live, I'm surrounded by cornfields and cows. And so there are no universities near me. And I knew I had to make a shift. And I love my boys, but that intellectual stimulation is so important to me. And so I ended up getting certified as a career coach, and going through that process, I realized, wow, I'm really loving this. And before I knew it, my 5-year rollout plan for my business turned into 3 months because people were asking for my services. And so I just launched into being not only a career coach, but an entrepreneur, which is nothing that I thought I would do. But now that I've tasted a little bit of that greener pasture, I don't think I could ever go back.
Yeah, I talk to a lot of coaches, as I know you do, with having a podcast of your own. And it's fascinating when you find that fit. It's not for everyone, but when you do find that fit, it's so engaging and fulfilling, isn't it?
It sure is.
I had a similar story where didn't know what career coaches were either. And I was going for an executive role in my first chapter of my career, the first 20 years. And at that point, I had mentors and they said, we should really find a coach. I thought, what is this coach thing? Of course, I was an athlete. I actually worked in athletics too. And so I was a coach, but not when it came to career as a manager and going through different places. It's a very similar story to you where I loved the moments where I was meeting people, scouring over their resumes, helping my staff with their resumes. I had a lot of college students that worked for me along the way. Very similar where you just do it because you're passionate about it and you're drawn to that. And when you get to sit down and think, what are the most fulfilling parts of my day? And could I do that more? Mm-hmm. Those were for me the same, very similar moments of, oh, that's what I love. It's when I love helping with transition, helping people find their confidence, all of that. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny you mentioned being an athlete. So I was also a collegiate athlete, volleyball and basketball. And so when I launched my business, before I really knew what career coaching was, that's what I envisioned. Was what my athletic coaches were for me. I wanted to be that for people's career. And so from the International Coaching Federation's definition of what coaching is, I implement a lot of those tools, and I certainly am a blend of a coach, but I'm also a blend of a consultant. I'm a blend of a supporter, a cheerleader. Like everything that my athletic coaches were to me is sort of how I approach working with my clients now.
Yes, I'm very similar in that regard as well, because there is life coaching, which is its own set of tools. And then there's this job career where people come to us also for that consultant side. Yeah, yep, it can be absolutely. A very big distinction for sure. And isn't it fascinating how many transferable skills there are for the athletic mindset and what you need to do to be successful in your athletics and physical prowess and career? So many similarities with even how I coach. It just fascinates me, that transferability.
Oh, yeah. And working with my clients. So I work almost exclusively with students and early career professionals. And many of them are also athletes, and they have no idea how to talk about it on their resumes or in interviews. So it's always a real joy to help them translate those skills in a way that's meaningful to that future employer or program.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's dig in more to your advice for those professionals. I know you also work mostly in the science and medical space, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it makes a lot of sense with your background. You can understand that really thoroughly. So if someone comes to you and they say, I don't know what I want to do with my career, or I want to transition, or this doesn't seem like the right fit, are there any steps or guides that you take them through? And what does that look like?
Well, number one, you're not alone. More than 50% of us change our careers at some point in our life. So very normal. The second thing I will say is that you're not alone in the process. So just like we have coaches for athletics, now there are coaches for your career. And I would argue that your career is much more long-term than your athletic stint for most of us. And so that investment in creating your support team is really important. So a coach like Lisa and I, perfect example of someone that might be on your support team. For me, I also think about your mentors. So that means people that have walked the path before you and can guide you down that same road they took. So that means your mentors will change as your career ambitions change. And so just be prepared for that. And then there's always a place for a good therapist too, especially those of us that go through career transitions. Often there's a lot of trauma that we've experienced that have led to these transitions. And it's really important to process and deal with that as you get ready for your next chapter. And so those are some of the big things to think about in terms of your support system.
Absolutely. A lot of my clients also have therapy going on at the same time, which makes sense because if a transition is happening in one major aspect of your life, most likely there's more than one thing going on. And it's like that athletic team, right? You've got the coach over here, but maybe you have someone fine tuning some other things like a massage therapist or a chiropractor, whatever it is. So yeah, finding that team. I love how you have put that and support system. So valuable. And thinking of it strategically, not just happenstance, because I think that's what a lot of us experienced along the way. not realizing you can really strategize how you can flow through your career and have that journey, matching your goals, but also support you when life happens.
Yeah.
Life happens.
Oh my goodness. And that reminds me of even my transition out of being a professor into being an entrepreneur career coach. That was hard for me. As you can imagine, this is something I envisioned being my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And my identity was all wrapped up into being a professor. And so I was actually really proactive, and I hired a coach to help me through that transition. And this airs on more of the pure coaching side. So to ask me powerful questions, reflective questions that help me separate myself away from professor and embrace this new role as career coach. For a long time, even after letting go of professor and becoming a career coach, people would ask me what I do. And I'd say something along the lines of, I'm a career coach, but I was a professor for years. Like I felt like I had to qualify it with something like that. And so working with this coach really helped me. And now I can proudly scream it to the world that I'm a career coach. Just be mindful of sometimes we underestimate our mindset around things. And so I was just really proactive this time around because I actually tried to resign a year before I successfully resigned. And so when I did attempt to resign, I'm sitting in front of my dean, just tears flowing down my face saying, I'm resigning. I'm going to be leaving. And obviously that doesn't look very believable. You look really upset about it, right? And so they threw everything but the kitchen sink at me to help me stay. And I felt so valued. And so I said, all right, I'll stay part-time and I'll work remotely. And then over that year that I worked remotely and part-time, I had that coach. And the next time I went to resign, I was smiling. And I was proud to make that switch. And I give so much credit to my former supervisor, my dean, who, to this day, she's listening to the podcast that I put together and just so supportive of my journey and just cheered me on. So it was a very different departure than it was going to be had I actually let go a year before.
Good for you. And finding that support, getting that clarity, and knowing that you needed to reach out. It was just not working. Right? Whatever we do on our own. Sometimes we just need that unbiased, unfiltered feedback.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more. You just mentioned a really great mentor, it sounds like, that you had along the way. I'd love to hear, especially for women that are listening, when we are in the workforce, I hear all the time, especially, early to mid-career women, where it's, I want to find a mentor. I want to find someone that can help me. So we're going beyond the coach, because there's also people in our industry and within our workforce that we really want to build that network with, feel supported by. There's champions, there's mentors, there's all these different names that we can put on different types of relationships. Can you tell a little bit more of that story of yours and who helped you along the way?
Well, the first two that stand out to me, I grew up in a really low income community, and most of the people I graduated with either work at the wineries or the prisons in Mark County. And I just remember I had two phenomenal science professors, Dr. Ruth and Dr. Prasad, and they were I opened my eyes, like, there's so much more beyond this county and what I can do in the agriculture business, essentially. And so that sparked my interest in biology. And so I ended up pursuing an undergrad degree in biology and came across another phenomenal mentor, Pete Fouth. I honestly have him to thank that I ever became a professor at all, because I had gone to our career center and I said, all right, I'm a junior. I'm thinking about grad school because I want to be a professor. What's my first step? And they were very well-meaning, but the first thing they said to me was, you're going to have to prepare to take out a loan for grad school. I was like, oh no, my dream's dead right here. I can't afford any more than even this college degree. And so I went back and just felt totally shattered. I was working on a project with Pete Fouth at the time. And I remember him saying, who told you that? And I was like, oh, the Career Center. And he's like, well, not in STEM. Most of the disciplines in STEM, you get paid to go to grad school. Not only is your tuition covered, but you get paid. And I was like, oh, my dream's alive again, right? In a matter of less than a week. A huge thank you to him. And then I started to build a lot of confidence out in the field. So I'm a conservation biologist. I spend most of my life chasing turtles now, but I started out chasing crayfish. Had a phenomenal mentor, Mark Coleman, who helped me through that. And then grad school came, Brad Swanson, Beth Schusler, Ben Fitzpatrick. All of these people are still a big part of my life. And all of them knew my biggest hurdle was confidence. I still remember sitting in Ben's office and he asked me a question. I answered it. And he's quiet and he's looking up and thinking. And I quickly started backtracking, like, oh my gosh, did I say a dumb answer? Let me rephrase or change my answer. And I started to change my answer. And he's like, whoa, you had it right the first time. And so it taught me to stand behind what I say and to be really confident in that. And I needed that more than I ever thought I would being in conservation. I study herps, so snakes, turtles, salamanders, that kind of thing. I'm one of the few women in that field for one. And a lot of the work I did was in the deep South. So it was one of those hurdles. I really needed to be confident to be in those spaces. And I really have them to thank for that.
Wow. And I love a lot of the names you rattled off sounded male. So,
one female and actually two. Two females in that whole,
makes such a difference. There's so many amazing male advocates out there, as long as we're also willing to accept their help. I see that a lot of times with women too, where we might have a chip on our shoulder or thinking we can't learn, but I have both men and women along my career journey that I'm still in touch with and just so grateful for, now trying to pay it forward. So finding a mentor, it sounds like some of it maybe came a little natural to you in the environment you were in. But are there any tips that you have for people that are in that place where the confidence is also hard to ask, right? It's hard to go up to someone and say, will you be my mentor? And is that the right way to do it? What has been your experience? Where have you seen success here?
Well, I guess my experience might be a little different and most relevant to those that are pursuing advanced degrees that are research-based. In that respect, you're not applying to a grad program, you're applying to work with a person. And so that's the primary goal, is to find a good match. And so I remember for my PhD, I applied to 11 different programs because there were 11 people that I thought would be a good match. And in our world, again, very lucky, they flew me out to every single one of those schools for a recruitment weekend where I got to meet them. I got to meet other professors, interact with the grad students, and make a decision from there. And so I was very intentional about who I'd want to work with. I think it's just a matter of, at that stage of my career, I really wanted somebody that was a little more hands-off, someone that really helped build my confidence and to let me have the freedom to pursue the questions that interested me most and be there to support me. And I found it. And he was a great match for what I was looking for.
That's fabulous. I'm hearing a lot of similarities to the corporate side too, when people are looking for a new job, and it's finding that manager, that development that they see within the culture of the team, that there will be opportunity or at least feedback that can go both ways. And so that's something I talk a lot with my clients on, and people I help mentor as well, is how do I figure that out during a job search, right? And the interview process. And if it's very limited, and there are a lot of great strategies and ways, even just asking to have that additional conversation when you're getting to the end, or you do have an offer in hand, just so you know it's the right fit. And they also know what's important to you based on what you ask, right? Our questions show more to the interviewer than even our answers to their questions. Yeah, I see that a lot in the job search, very similar.
And I have to share this. So I had a guest on my podcast share this experience with being offered a job and then being offered a day or two to shadow before they decided. I was like,
Love
what?
that.
I know. And I'm like, all employers out there, please do this.
Yes.
All job seekers, please ask for this because it could save so many horror stories and it can give you so much more confidence that it's the right fit for you because accepting an offer is a commitment for both parties. And I just thought that was brilliant. And this was a guest in the medical space, right?
Oh, nice.
And so I'm really hoping that it catches fire and is in every discipline.
Yeah, it feels like for both parties. So it's such a good idea. Do more of that. Oh, I love it. You really can figure out culture when you're finally there.
Yes.
Yeah, love that. So I want to back up a little bit to parenthood because we also have this in common, right? We're both career driven. We're career coaches now, but it wasn't always our story. We're former female athletes and we have a lot of similar passions to help this next generation of people really find themselves and find their career. And when we have children as women, whether that's our choice or not, or where we're going with it, and of course, I'm a huge advocate. Women should have choices. A lot of us, if we have a career that is successful and we enjoy that element of our being, don't want to stop it just because I birthed a child, right? It can come out in different ways. I'm very fortunate, and I know you are too, that to have a partner that is very supportive in that. And we figure it out and we figure out what does childcare look like? What kind of balance is that? Who's doing how much proportionally? But that can be a challenge for a lot of women too. So tell me a little bit more about you had these babies, you guys made a move, and what was going on with your mindset around what am I going to do with my career?
I was freaking out probably. Even as I'm pregnant, realizing that something's got to change and my husband likes his job. We started our jobs at the same time, but in our world, like he was making substantially more money than I was, even though I had a PhD. And so I knew it was coming that we'd elect to move closer to him. What I was less prepared for was how hard it would be to manage my emotions around being with the kids and thinking about work, or being at work and thinking about the kids. I had a really hard time separating those things. And even as an entrepreneur, like I have the best boss ever, it's myself. I can decide how to run it. And I couldn't figure it out for the longest time. I would try to say, okay, I'll have coaching sessions and work time during nap times, but God forbid their naps were short or they wouldn't go down for their nap on time. I was so stressed. And so I finally found a system that worked for me. And for me, that meant dedicated work days where I am full on career woman. And then dedicated mom days where I'm full on mama. And separating it that way, I felt no resentment towards either while I was spending time doing it. And that made a huge difference. I want to be fully present in both spaces. And I found that if I was essentially task shifting, it was really hard for me. And the other thing, I just want to give not just women, but parents out there, it is not elitist to get help with managing your household. I am by no means rich, by no means, but I have chose to sacrifice certain things like extensive cable channels so that I could hire a cleaner to come once a month to help me with the house. And that has alleviated so much stress off my shoulders. And I can use that time now to spend with my boys or spend working on business related things. And so spend your time where you want it. And I just want to encourage you, if that means bringing in some extra help. I know traditionally speaking, that's like, if you can do it yourself, why hire somebody? But time is precious. You can always replace money. You can't replace time.
Oh, I can't agree more with you, Cassie. When I was full career, we had house cleaning and oh my gosh, it made it so I could be fully present with my daughter when I was home and not stressing about those dust bunnies and this and that going on. And then when I went solo, you have this kind of, I don't have the cash flow that's consistent. So how in the world can I afford that? But it is such a game changer mentally when you bring in that community. And it's just like coaching too, right? Of course you can do a job hunt on your own. Of course, you can find a community out there. Career coaching is not for everyone, but back to, okay, how is your mindset around it? Do you need support from a neutral party because you just don't have the right person or people within your team? And you can pay to unblock so much quicker, like anything. When, especially here in the States, right? We have such an independent DIY culture.
Yes.
Once you can kind of get through that and think, oh, community a little bit more. Yeah, I totally feel you on that.
Well, not only that, but DIY what you like to do.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I don't like to clean. I love to organize though. I will organize to my heart's content, but cleaning like dust bunnies, I feel like why dust? It just comes back. But there are so many things. Like I think about even I am a coach, but I will not coach my sons in their career. They have enough pressure. Mom and dad have advanced degrees. If they don't want to go to college, like they want to be a plumber, I want them to know I support them. And so getting a third party that knows nothing about our situation to coach our boys in their career journeys, 100%. I would hire a coach to help them versus me as the parent doing it. I'm there to support them. I don't have all the answers. And they will subconsciously feel pressure in anything I suggest. So I certainly want them to explore around. And if they choose to, be outside of the sciences, I champion that too. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I see a lot of, especially kind of baby boomer generation starting to realize, oh, I can pay, like they get career coaching when they're at a certain level and they feel like they can afford it. And I have clients now that are paying for their children's coaching. So like, oh, I think you could help my kid out too, right? And it's beautiful because now it's starting to be more wide known and well known. And, career services at the college and university level is great when you can access that and use it, but it's not individualized. It's really, they've got so many students that they're supporting that can be really tough to get that deep support you may need.
Yeah. And at least in my case, like even in my own story about thinking, I can't afford grad school and it turns out I get paid. There are some discipline specific nuances, like even having a coach or a mentor that's familiar with those spaces is so important. And I'm sure you've heard the saying, academics breed academics. And so it's really important too, if you're not sure if academia is the right fit for you, to find mentors and coaches with exposure outside of that, like government, nonprofit, industry, so that you have that to make a confident decision whether academia is the right fit for you or not.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Awesome. Well, our time is getting close to the end. So I want to make sure you have time to share with the audience any more takeaways that you had when it comes to figuring out career transition. Is there something else you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think maybe just two more points. One, know your values and write them down. I am a yes person to a fault. And I find when I'm starting to feel anxious or stressed, it's because I'm not in alignment with my values anymore. One of my values is that I'm most innovative in environments where resilience and growth are admired more than immediate success. And so, in other words, I like to trial and error. That's just been such an important thing to hold close to me because it showed me that the government positions, while they have their perks, is not a good fit for that value, at least in my discipline, because there are lots of rules and regulations and particular things you have to accomplish. And so that's what confirmed to me academia is great. I have the freedom to pursue the research questions that I want. And that value extends into life at home too. I'm a parent. There's no rule book for how this works. There's a lot of books on it, but they contradict each other. So just holding on to this value and realizing I'm going to make mistakes as a parent, but that's okay because it aligns with my values and I know I'm going to bounce back. I know I'm going to grow. And that's the important thing to kind of keep close. And so I think that's a big one, is to have your values and actually write them down. I have a pretty useful exercise for that I've been working on with clients for years. And I'll be incorporating it into the digital courses that I launch in September of 2024. So I'm really excited for that. So if you're struggling with values and professional identity and how to put that together, I'm working on a course. So stay tuned for that.
Great.
Yeah. And then the other one is, I wish younger me knew this, but whether or not you actually change careers, be ready for it to possibly happen. I didn't think I'd do anything else besides be a professor. And honest to goodness, I would have if we were closer commute wise. I would have just stayed a professor for the rest of my days and been happy. But life happened and my kids became the priority and we moved closer to my husband's job. And I realized, wow, my resume is all about teaching and nothing about career coach or entrepreneurship. And if I want to apply for any sort of business opportunities, I should update that. And I realized I haven't updated this resume since I got my job 6 years ago. And so just remember, your resume is a living document. And even if you don't change jobs, updating it can help you get promotions or at least negotiate for new roles and things like that. So very worthwhile to do that. And always, keep learning. For me, I read a lot of Science Daily articles. I tinker with AI technology a lot, which thank goodness, because they have been huge time savers in running a business by myself. And then the other piece is just keep building and fostering your network, because you never know when those relationships will be important. I can't tell you how many students I work with who were getting ready to apply to med school. And I'm like, great, who are your recommenders? Who are you going to reach out to? And they have no idea. They're like, I haven't talked to that professor in 3 years. So you got to keep these relationships going, because you never know what value they could hold for you in the future.
Yes, 100%. The living document, I love it, because even putting a timer, right? Like every 6 months or so, like jot those things down, capture them somewhere near your resume or just in a living document that you can pull from. Because even if you hire a resume writer, guess what you have to do? You still have to have all the information. They can't read your mind or know your background. So yeah, completely agree with that. And the networking is a long game. And it's exactly what you said. It's about relationships. It's not about using people when you need them. It's about fostering relationships and a two-way street with those. And so the more you stay in touch, the more you can also help others, which makes it feel better when you need something, right? So
Absolutely.
when you go ask for a recommendation or, oh, I see that you're hiring at your company, I would love to work with you again. Doesn't feel like out of the blue, that sleazy salesperson that we all hate with the word networking. So
right.
Completely agree. Cassie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience and your wisdom with everyone. How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm most active on LinkedIn. So you can just search Cassie M as in Marie Briggs and you'll find me. I cleverly use my middle initial, fun tip for all of you, because I can tell the difference between automated spammy messages, which have my first name and middle initial, and then ones that are reaching out to me, just Cassie. So drop a note. Let me know that you heard from my story on this podcast. I'd love to connect. I'm also pretty active on Instagram. And of course, you can always hop on my website at successinsciencecc.com.
Great. And you mentioned that you have a course starting in September, right?
Yeah. So I've just finished drafting the launch page, so bear with me, but it'll be at successinscienceacademy.com. And so you'll see all the information about that course. But in the meantime, I do have a free PDF download on crafting really compelling resume bullets. And I did title it Bulletproof Your Resume for that reason. So you can feel free to snag that PDF. Just hop over to successinsciencecc.com/resume.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all those resources. And again, your time. And I, wrote a book named Career Mama. So I'll dawn you, fellow career mama. We've got 2 careers, right? Raising our children and whatever that portfolio of work outside of that looks like as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Are you currently in the job search or looking to make a career transition? Her Career Studio has you covered. Hi, this is Lisa Virtue, the career coach and the founder of Her Career Studio that is dedicated to bringing you free resources. So head to hercareerstudio.com and get your free cover letter template, the guide to how to write it, and your free resume template. Keep it simple and use these tried and true resume templates that are also ATS friendly and in Google Docs so they're easy to edit and keep track of. This will build out your career story in writing so that you can get those interviews and ultimately land that ideal job. You got this. Good luck and best wishes.